you hear me, Carmen?
So we're streaming, so whenever you're ready, stop sharing. Yeah, ready to go.
Yeah, you told me you know that. No?
Same way as a computer.
All in order. Good evening and welcome to Wednesday, August 25, 2021, 6 p.m. A special planning commission meeting. The meeting will now come in order. Present to Executive Order N-29-20. Please be advised the members of the Bell Gardens Planning Commission will participate in today's meeting. Telephonic Planning Commission and staff are participating from remote location. Members, the public view and listen to the meeting live online to the city website as noted on the agenda. The invocation and pledge allegiance tonight will be given by Ms. Morales, and pledge of allegiance will be led by Ms. Silva. Everybody stand, please.
Lord, as we gather in your name, please bless this meeting and everyone present. Direct and assist us with your wisdom into making the right decisions. May our decisions bring truthfulness and blessing for the future and the betterment of this community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Right hand over your heart, start the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation.
Thank you. Secretary, will you give me a roll call, please?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. I will now take roll call. Commissioner De La Rosa,
Present.
Commissioner Flores,
Present.
Commissioner Leon,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Present.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Present. Do we have any public comment on the agenda item? Secretary?
We do not, Chairperson.
I will, I will open the public comment not agenda. Commissioners, if there's no objection, planning commission will be closed. No objection? Public comment, public comment, not agenda? No, will be closed. The public hearing item number 1, zoning code amendment 2021-001, ordinance number 917- home occupation permits. May we have the staff report, please? The presentation will be given by Ms. Siva.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to share the screen. So our first item for today, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, the zoning code amendment number 2021-007 is for home occupation permits, and ordinance number 917. So the Community Development Department has received a few inquiries regarding the operation of businesses from homes within the city. The definition for home occupations are occupations, callings, or professions that are carried on by a resident of a dwelling unit as an accessory use to the residential use of the subject unit. The draft ordinance that we have prepared intends for home occupations to not disrupt or disturb the character of neighborhoods throughout the city. Although the current zoning code addresses cottage food operations in section 9.20096, this only provides regulations and permit requirements for food-related businesses that are operated from homes. The drafted ordinance includes a number of regulations and standards. I'll go through them. The business would be conducted completely within the inside of the home only. You couldn't operate it outside. Outdoor improvements to support the home occupation would not be permitted. Employees that don't also reside within the unit would not be allowed to work within the home. All of the equipment for the business, for example, computers, printers, storage items, things that you're manufacturing, that you're selling from your home by mail, would be required to be stored inside the home, not outdoors. Customers, clients, visitors would not be allowed to visit the home, as that would become a traffic concern. Home occupation activities would not cause significant impacts to the surrounding area. For example, required parking cannot be altered or utilized for anything other than parking personal vehicles. There wouldn't be allowed, that business wouldn't be allowed to store hazardous impacts, materials that would then cause noise, fumes, etc. Home occupation permits could be revoked if the business or business owner is not abiding by all of the standards and regulations listed in the ordinance. It is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt resolution PC number 2021-5, recommending to the City Council the approval of the zoning code amendment and adoption of ordinance number 917, which would amend these following sections of the municipal code: chapter 9.04 for definitions, chapter 9.10 residential zones, and then also the permitted land uses and the residential land use matrix. In addition, commercial zones, the permitted land use section, and also the commercial land use matrix, and also a whole new section for special uses and applicable standards specifically for home occupation permits.
Thank you. Yeah. At this time, I will open a public hearing. Secretary, do we have anybody speak on this item?
We do not, Chairperson.
Thank you. If there is no objection on this planning commission, planning commissioners, I will close this public hearing. No objection? Close. Are there any questions for the staff from the commissioners?
In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm glad this is being brought to the table, especially because of the majority of the population is working from home. My question to staff is, let's assume that someone wants to sell tamales or tacos, and deliver them to the customer. How would they go about this? I'm sure that they have to go through approval first in order to have this permit. But can we have a little bit of a clarification for those individuals who would be interested in practicing that sort of business?
Chairman or Commissioner De La Rosa. So what we have in the municipal code already is a section regarding cottage food operations, which was put into the municipal code when there was a state regulation that was adopted in the government code. And so all cities had to adopt a section accordingly. And so our home occupation permit new section is modeled after that section as well. So there is a license requirement, regulations that pertain to food-related businesses within a home, and license requirements, regulations that kind of match with home occupation permits as well. And those are also, I believe, for cottage food operation businesses, they also have to obtain clearances from county agencies as well. But those are all certain requirements that pertain to food specifically.
Thank you.
Commission? Any more questions?
Actually, I do, yes. So it was mentioned how home occupation permits would be revoked. What, what sort of regulations are there for them to determine like a revoke? Like, would there be a regulation and where they would go and inspect these homes, make sure that they're following protocol? Or how would they determine whether these permits are revoked, or what process are we following for that?
So based on the standards under the performance standards section of the ordinance, essentially is what we would be looking for if someone were to be not abiding by those standards. So some of those things are things that code enforcement may see when they're in their areas of the city, and they're seeing that people are utilizing outdoor spaces of their homes, and then that would be in contrary to what we would permit per the ordinance. It could also be, say you have a neighbor who's next door to someone who's operating a business from their home, and they're noticing that they see fumes that are coming from the home during the day, and they can see that their neighbor is operating a business that clearly is something outdoors, it's causing noise or anything that is bothering them in that sense. They could also contact the department as well, and that's something that we would look into, and then go through a process in terms of revoking that permit.
So, answer your,
Yeah, so pretty much, so for now, we're just relying like on neighbors and stuff, but I'm more like on the city wise, like us as the city, how could we make sure that they're following protocol for these businesses, making sure that they're running properly?
usually, and I will correct me if I'm wrong on this one, city attorney, but usually when you have this kind of permit is to conduct a business from your office, uh, and through computers and all this, you will be legally at home sending all kinds of, for instance, like I would say that I would use my son. My son worked for architect, and he sent all the plans through the internet, so he can do it legally. He can do it at home, far as with the license. That's what I understand on this item. If you have something else, when you come to the city, they will tell you what you can do and what you cannot do, far as being a vendor and all these other items.
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead,
thank you, Chair.
yes.
Commissioner Flores, I think Section F of the ordinance is probably what you're looking for as far as what the city can do. The permits that are issued are revocable by the Community Development Director, and implied in that is the right of inspection. If he feels that there is something going on there that is in violation of the provisions of the permit, city can certainly inspect, and if it finds such a violation, they can proceed with a revocation if it's not cured by the applicant, by the permit holder. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, city attorney. Ms. Silva.
Chairperson Rivera, if I may add to this, the comments from the city attorney and Yalen. Also, this type of licenses will be renewed annually. So on an annual basis, just like a regular business, an owner will receive a renewal notice in the mail, and at the time, the license will be renewed. However, if there's a history of code enforcement complaints and non-compliant with the provisions of the code, the director will then review whether or not to allow the business to continue.
Sorry, if we can, commission, we wish to speak. If it's none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation or deny it.
Do we have a first?
You will have a motion?
Motion to approve zoning code amendment number 2021-007, ordinance number 917.
Need
I
a
second.
second?
I second.
Any opposed? Motion passed 5-0. Next item will be item number 2, approval of the minutes. There any changes or additions to the minutes, Commission? No changes, I will entertain a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 19, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
In a second,
I second.
any opposed? No opposed, 5-0 pass. From the minutes. Discussion item number 3-5. Housing element update community workshop number 2. Presentation will be given by Carmen and Veronica Tan, housing element consultant.
Thank you, Chairperson Rivera. If I may, just a quick introduction to Veronica's presentation. On May 20 of 2020, the city initiated the housing element update process for the 6th cycle of the planning period with the approval of the professional services agreement between the consultant Veronica Tam and the city of Bell Gardens. Since then, staff and the consultant have been working closely together to meet all the state requirements and comply with the schedule deadlines for the adoption and certification of the ordinance, of the element, I'm sorry. As part of the process, the state requires cities to hold community workshops to provide information on the proposed update of the element, as well as receive public input. As you remember, the first workshop was held on February 17th of 2021. Today is the second workshop that is required by the state. And during this workshop, the consultant will introduce the draft element to the Planning Commission and the community. And the draft element has been made available for public review since August 17th and will still be available through September 3rd. Both workshops have been advertised on the city's social media, Facebook and Instagram, as well as the city's website, and flyers that were mailed to stakeholders and anyone in the community who requested to be notified. Comments from tonight's meeting from the public and the commissioners will be included as part of the draft element before it is submitted to the State Housing and Community Development Department for review. And at the end of the presentation, the consultant and staff will be available to answer any questions that the commission may have. And at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Veronica Tam, our consultant, who's gonna walk us through the most important sections of the housing element. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So I'm just kind of go over the housing element and because some community members may not have attended the first meeting. So what I'd like to do tonight is just give a very brief overview of what the housing element is, what are the basic requirements, and what are the most critical component of the housing element, which is meeting the regional housing needs allocation or assessment, and the housing programs to go along with the overall strategies for meeting your RENA. We also have other housing programs or actions that the city would need to take, and the next steps in terms of getting the housing element through adoption between now and adoption. So just to reiterate, the housing element is part of your general plan. It's part of the 7 mandated elements of the general plan. It looks at the housing needs in the community, not only regarding the existing needs of your residents, but also future needs. The city is anticipated to welcome future residents to the city. So how are we going to accommodate those needs? The housing element has to be updated every 8 years in order to comply with state law. Your general plan usually has a longer planning horizon, but the housing element has to be updated every 8 years or so. For us, within the Southern California Association of Governments kind of region, our statutory deadline is October 15 with a 120-day grace period. And so that would all go all the way to February of 2022. The other thing that is important about the housing element is that it has to be reviewed by a state agency for compliance with state law. The agency responsible for that is the State Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. There are key requirements of the housing element. We have to address the projected housing demand through the regional housing needs allocation process that's mandated by state law. We have to increase housing production to meet this demand. We also have to preserve existing affordable housing, improve the quality of housing conditions in your community, and then facilitate the development of housing for all income groups and types. It's particularly for those with special needs. Special needs are those who are defined by state law as the elderly, disabled, homeless, farm workers, female-headed households, and large households. Large households are defined as those who have more than five persons or more in the household is considered to be a large household. And these are generally the types of households that may have more difficulty in getting adequate and affordable housing, and therefore they deserve a little bit of attention in your housing element. And last but not least, to promote fair housing choices for all. So the most critical component of the city's review of the housing element or the state's review of the housing element is this whole concept of the regional housing needs assessment. This is the amount of growth that the city of Bell Gardens is responsible for as part of the region. It doesn't mean that it's all the growth that is generated from within the city, but it's your share of the overall regional growth. Now, we all probably have been kind of hearing and talking about this for a couple of years now. The Southern California Association of Government, the 6-county region, has been allocated a very large regional housing needs allocation of over 1.34 million units. LA County get 813,000. And City of Bell Gardens get 503 units. It's a lot larger than what you're used to, but it's still generally a lot smaller than most of your neighbors. If you compare to like Downey, Huntington Park, and Southgate, those cities that got a large number. For Bell Gardens, it's recognizing that the city is small. It's primarily built out, and also you don't have as much access to transit as some other communities. Therefore, your regional housing needs allocation is small. What it does mean is that with this regional housing needs allocation, it's not a production requirement. It's not requiring that you build all the units, because you don't build units as a local jurisdiction. You don't build units. You facilitate that by providing land use planning. You are not in the position to ensure that the units are built. So the regional housing needs allocation, the RENA, is a planning goal. It's not a production obligation. What the state looks at is that you must, for a city of your size of at least 30 and 25,000 population, your 30 units to the acre is considered a density that's feasible for facilitating lower income housing, and sites must be at least half an acre. These are some of the criteria when looking at sites, what constitute an adequate sites for facilitating lower income RENA. There are also new state laws that calls like SB 166 no net laws that essentially says that as you do develop, you're not required to build, but as the city develops and you use up some of the sites in your housing element, and they're being built at a different income level or a different number of units, you want to make sure that your site's capacity has a buffer so that you would be able to replenish the site's inventory. And the recommendation from the state is 15 to 30% of a buffer. It's not a mandated buffer, but it's a recommended buffer. So in meeting this regional housing needs assessment for the city, we go through a number of strategies. First of all, we looked at what are the things that are already happening in the city. And you certainly have entitled projects, and you also have projects that are under review that you can get credit for. We'll go into that a little bit more detail, but you do get credit for that. You're also required by state law to permit accessory dwelling units. For accessory dwelling units, we can only estimate the capacity based on trend. And so we're able to get some ADUs in the city because the city is, again, pretty built out in most of your residential neighborhoods. So you're not getting a lot of ADUs in your community. Then we look at whether they're underutilized or vacant properties that are currently zoned for housing that allows for the 30 units to the acre. In your city, in the city of Bell Gardens, there are two categories of your land use destination that allows for that type of density, your R3 and your MU overlay. Then once we got through all these possibilities, we don't have enough sites, then we have to identify areas that you're going to rezone. So looking at your approved and pipeline projects, based on information provided by staff, we get credits for about 82 units. These are the projects that are currently either approved and titled or being that somebody submitted an application or in plan check. So we're able to get about 82 units in credit. Primarily, if they are ownership type of housing units, we would not be able to qualify them as affordable. But if they are apartments and ADUs, where based on the market conditions in Bell Gardens, we can categorize them as moderate income. So just based on pipeline, we have met about 82 of your 503 unit RENA. Then we looked at potential areas of rezoning. With all of the areas that we looked at, we were not able to get enough sites. There were 4 properties that were left over vacant, R3 properties that we're able to use, but they're too small, don't qualify as feasible for facilitating lower income. And actually, the city of Bell Gardens has more of an, and the other side of the issue, your regional housing needs allocation actually has a number that you're responsible for above moderate income. And so we are not able to get a lot of sites for even above moderate income. So in this particular, the city has suggested 2 areas for rezoning. These are industrial areas, but they are very close to also areas that we can, residential areas, and they're primarily vacant. So these are the areas that are recommended by staff to be rezoned into R3. that would allow for higher density residential, and we would get about 180 units from these two pieces of property from 62K gauge, estimating just at a 22 units to the acre, not even though it allows 30 units to the acre, we're not suggesting that it's going to be built at 30 units because most of the time, with a lot of other reasons, like they come down to a lower density. We assume at 22, that's the average development density in the city right now regarding multifamily or mixed use. That's about 22 units. We get about 60 something units in this the first property, and the second one that has 5 different parcels in it. We would get about 117 units. The two of them combined would give us the number of units that we need. So just kind of like walk you through a little bit more about how we get to our regional housing needs allocation is that we look at our RHNA. Low income RHNA is 129 units. This is the one that we need to get something that's at the R3 or mixed use overlay, at least 30 units to the acre. Anything else can be moderate and above moderate income, and other kind of density. With the entitled projects or pipeline projects, we get 82 units. With a projected average of 5 units of ADUs over the next 8 years, we get 40 units. This income distribution is based on a survey, a rent survey conducted by SCAG. We're allowed to use the regional average of income distribution for the ADUs, and so we can meet about 40 of that. We have about a few sites, 4 different vacant sites at the Gotham Street area that can accommodate about 27 units. Those sites are very small. Only one site that is 0.53 acre would qualify as a site feasible for lower income. The rest of them are too small. They can only be considered feasible for moderate income. Then we went to another area where we looked at new sites that doesn't require rezoning. Sites that is currently zoned that allow for housing. There's only one more R3 site, but again, it's too small. But it is, I think it's available for sale. And so that's why we included that as well. But what we have found a lot of opportunities is in your mixed use overlay, in your general plan mixed use overlay. That is an area that generally zones commercial manufacturing. Those are really, a lot of them are used for auto-related and very underutilized old properties. You're finally beginning to see mixed use projects in those areas. I think you got the first application. Even though it allows for 30 units to the acre, but because it probably would be more difficult to develop because of not having a trend in the city, we are assuming that those units, if we are able to get the units, are not going to be easily feasible for affordable units at the lower income. And also because you do have a moderate and above moderate income RHNA that we need to fulfill. So we are allocating the mixed use sites to moderate and above moderate income. Now, mixed use sites do not require, they're general plan designated. What the city does need to do is to establish development standards for your mixed use land use designation. Currently, there is no development standards associated with your mixed use general plan designation. The latest project that the most recent project applied that has an application is utilizing the R3 standards. Now, if the city wants to do the same thing in the future, it just needs to codify it that way. But you may also want to come up with different design and development standards for your mixed use. But within your mixed use area, we identify some of the properties that looks more feasible for redevelopment over the next 8 years. And so we would be able to get about 200 and something units over in the mixed use area. And that still left us with the lower income RHNA that we don't have the sites for. And that that's where the rezoning comes in place. The two properties that we talked about earlier, proposed for rezoning, they'll get us about 180 units. So with all that combined, we would be able to meet the RENA with the buffer that is recommended by the state. So generally, the buffer is about 30% for the lower income, but overall about 25% for the entire RENA. So here is the distribution of sites. I just want to let you know that this area is one of the rezone sites that has 5 properties, but we got the wrong APN number, so this map is not exactly correct, and I didn't have enough time to correct it before we have to release the draft. But essentially, it's this whole area. Not this piece, but includes this piece. So that is the rezone site number 2 that we mentioned before. That has 5 parcels. This is rezone site number 1. Currently, it's part of the overlay as well. It's the mixed use overlay, and then it has, I think, commercial manufacturing also in the as the underlying zone for the rest of the site. So this proposed to be rezoned to R3. They're almost vacant with very minimal improvements on those. We went ahead and identified areas that are the purple areas are where we think are appropriate for mixed use. These are currently designated in your general plan already as mixed use. So we just went in and evaluated the existing conditions and find locations where it seems appropriate to, if opportunity presents itself to turn into mixed use, which we assume we'll see more in the future. There are some scattered little sites available. That's from the current R3 zoning, and I think this this also is an R3 sites available, but we never used it before, and these are the sites that we used before. So with all these sites, we are able to meet your 503 unit RENA with a buffer that's about 25% or 20 to 25%. Then updating the housing element also involves updating your programs. A lot of your programs the city of Bell Gardens doesn't have a lot of resources. With the elimination of redevelopment, a lot of cities are really, the hands are tied regarding of what you can do. So the programs that we are putting in are primarily modifying the programs and reflecting current state law. For example, we're continuing your code enforcement program and preserving existing affordable housing. This is a requirement. Housing choice vouchers, that's probably the most significant program available to the city to assist the people who are extremely low and very low income. But we are expanding the requirement to outreach and educate the public about the new source of income protection, where landlords are not allowed to reject Section 8 anymore. That's based on new state law. Facilitating affordable housing. Home buyer assistance, we heard it from the public that people would like to get home buyer assistance in order to become homeowners, but the city doesn't really have a lot of resources. Again, you do have the ability to access home buyer programs through the county. So the housing element emphasizes that you will be promoting resources outside from the outside agencies that residents of Bell Gardens have access to. Regarding the sites inventory, this is your RENA. One, we have to rezone the 2 properties into R3 in order to meet your low-income RENA. We also have to establish standards for the MU overlay in order to implement your general plan and allow mixed-use development to smoothly occur in your mixed-use area. Density bonus, just to modify the density bonus in order to comply with state law. New state law accessory dwelling units that we have to not only update the zoning code, but also to facilitate the development of mixed use ADUs in your community by providing technical assistance, maybe expedited review. The program is to establish some kind of incentives or tools in order to allow your homeowners to develop ADUs in the community. But we're not anticipating a lot because of how already like built out your residential neighborhoods are. Housing for special needs, these are in zoning code amendments in order to comply with state law. Primarily, these are just making sure that your zoning code addresses those needs. Low barrier navigation center, emergency shelters, parking standards. You already provide for it in your zoning code about emergency shelters, but the parking standards has to be modified based on state law. Low barrier navigation centers are kind of facilities that allow somebody who are ready to transition to permanent housing, but maybe just waiting for a unit to be available. Supportive housing is for people with special needs and homeless, and employee housing under the State Employee Housing Act. Any type of employee housing for 6 or fewer employees provided by the employer is considered single family residential use. So that's something we need to fix in the zoning code. There is one piece of new state law that's kind of has an overarching kind of influence on the housing element is the AB 688, affirmatively furthering fair housing. In that particular regard, we have to make sure that the city do outreach and education. You do have access for fair housing services through your participation in the county's CDBG program. Housing mobility and housing choices, making sure that you promote a variety of housing types. And I think by modifying your mixed use and educating people about the source of income protection, promoting the use of vouchers in your community, those are going to be important. Place-based strategies for neighborhood improvements, that's another kind of state emphasis on providing fair housing, making sure that you improve the neighborhood's quality. And so that households who are impacted by low moderate income or concentration of displacement risk and all that, they have actually ability to access amenities and services. So that's the programs in a nutshell. They're a little bit different than the last time, primarily because the state has substantially changed the state law. So as Carmen mentioned, the draft housing element has been available for public review since August 17. We'll continue to make revisions to the draft and accept comments from the public until September 3rd, and then we intend to send the housing element to the state on September 7th. And therefore be able to complete the 60-day review by November, and adoption is going to be in December and January, meeting the grace period of the housing element, which ends February 12th, 2022. So it's a tight timeline, but it's unfortunately the housing element update this time is quite complex. And so it is a schedule that we all kind of have to work with. With that, I conclude the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Rivera, can you unmute?
Sorry, is anybody on the line?
No, we do not have any. We do not have any speakers for this item, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the staff, commissioners? No questions? I have one, I guess it will be a clarification. You said that we cannot reject section 8 as a city, or I didn't understand quite that. Can you clarify for me, please?
Back in 2020, well, 2019, and the state passes two laws, and so it became effective in 2020. That not that as a city that you cannot reject it, as a landlord, it cannot reject it. The state finally recognizes that public assistance is a legitimate source of income for paying housing payments. So then in the past, you can see that advertising for rental would say no Section 8 accepted. That was allowable and legal before 2020, but since 2020, that's been like that's been illegal in the state of California, and a lot of small property owners, particularly the mom and pop type of like people who maybe own a couple of units, they may not be aware that this type of discrimination based on source of income is no longer legal in California. So we want to make sure that the outreach and education is the city coordinates with the Housing Rights Center or the Fair Housing Service providers in order to make sure that the residents know their rights and landlords know that their responsibility.
Thank you for that clarification. Another question, do you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
I can go after you, Mr. Rivera.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question is, you say we need to have like 503 units, right?
Correct.
So, do we have a deadline on that, or we have like 5 years, or?
The housing element is for 8 years. You're not required to build the units. You're required to zone for it. At this point, we don't have enough without the rezoning of those two properties. You have 3 years to rezone those two properties. You have until October 15, 2024 to do the rezoning of those two properties. Now, is that exactly the two properties that you need to rezone? You could change it if you can find equivalent eligible like in properties that you can rezone and make up the numbers at the time when you actually do the rezoning. You can reevaluate, but at this time, staff looked at all the sites in the city. Those are the two that's most appropriate.
No, in regarding to this question is like, let's say somebody buys 3 or 4 lots and they want to build, let's say 100 houses, 100 apartments. But they're not zoning. Can we, the planning department, change the zoning at that time, or not?
Yeah, I think that's actually certainly if they request a zone change or general plan amendment, I'm sure that Carmen, you have a better response to that. But that's certainly up to the city council and the planning commission to recommend or approve or not approve that kind of general plan and zoning change.
Okay, thank you. Maybe that's the attorney to tell
Sure.
us.
Chair, Commission members, I think, as I understood the question, city always has the ability to consider a rezoning application for any kind of a development, whether it's residential or otherwise. I think the difference here is that, as Ms. Tam identified, we are obligated under the housing element to move forward with the rezoning prior to anybody coming in and asking for it on parcels which would provide us with the ability to accommodate the RENA numbers that the state imposes on the city. So if we have the parcels that were identified, for example, are 2 areas, we have 3 years to move forward with a city-initiated rezoning, making those parcels available for any developer who wishes to put housing on those parcels. That doesn't preclude somebody else or the same developer coming in and asking for a rezone on some other parcel in the city if they want to develop it into a different use than it's allowed under the current zone.
Chairperson Rivera, if I may, during the presentation, Veronica mentioned that there are some properties in the city that are currently designated as mixed use, and but the zoning designation on those properties have to be changed to match the mixed use definition. The city is already in the process of doing so. The city is already working with a separate consultant that will be assisting staff with making those changes to provide consistency between the general plan and the general plan land use and the zoning ordinance. So that's the second part to this whole process that the staff is already working on right now with another consultant.
Carmen, for the clarification. Both
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Veronica and staff for putting up this presentation. My question is in regards to the grant that we had set aside for landlords and property owners here in Bell Gardens, the rehabilitation, and I'm not sure, I forget the full title of the grant, but basically allowed them to permit for ADU construction in their property. Have we seen residents tap into those funds to help certainly with this cause in reaching these numbers, at least specifically for the ADUs?
I think that would be a question that Carmen has to answer because I'm not sure about the current like trend.
So Chairperson, if I may answer that question. So the city was awarded the Call Home Grant monies, and that money can be used not only to allow for ADU conversion, also to legalize ADUs or garage conversions into ADUs, but also for first-time home buyer in the city. And the city has the grant consultant who works very closely with the staff in getting that money dispersed to applicants. And so that is based on application basis submitted to the city through the grant consultant. So yes, the city has had available Commissioner Leo for anyone that wishes to apply and that qualifies to be recipients of the money.
Okay, so for any resident watching right now, those funds are still available for them to apply and tap for
Correct.
them. Okay,
Correct.
awesome, great.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. Any, go ahead, Villalobos.
So Veronica, after the city establishes the assessment, the buffer that we got, which was 503, would the city ever be forced to develop those 503 units that they established?
No, your only obligation is one, to make sure that your planning, land use policies allow for that to happen. Two, you remove governmental constraints that preclude it from happening. For example, fixing your zoning code so that it can be implemented. And three, then you facilitate and encourage development in your city, but you have no control over the market. You have no control over a lot of things regarding actual development. So for that reason, you will not be required to ensure those units get built, but you are required to remove the roadblocks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Any more questions?
I have a question. Thank you, Veronica, for the insightful presentation. My question to you is, how can we facilitate the development of housing for special needs groups? I was looking at the data here, and it says that 38% of the households in Bell Gardens are single-parent households. On top of that, 26% of these households are female-headed households with children. This is a large percentage, in my opinion. How can we facilitate the development for these special needs communities?
I think in general, you have to start from affordable housing. That's the bottom line, affordable housing. And then the next thing that you want to look at is, what would be the mix of housing types or size that you encourage. You don't want to build affordable housing that's all one bedroom, and so it would not be suitable for families. The other thing that, when you work with a nonprofit, essentially affordable housing in most cases are working with nonprofits. When you work with a nonprofits, you can have them target the design of the housing that is geared for families, for example, and especially for female-headed households, single-parent households, by offering childcare on site, by locating housing near public transportation, so that the single-parent households have a little bit more help, because they older kids may be able to take the bus to school or whatever. So I think some of these planning and amenities is how you kind of facilitate and encourage housing that would gear towards family, particularly female-headed households.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
Chairperson Rivera, you're muted.
Sorry. If I don't, do we have any more questions from the commissions? If we don't have no more questions, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to receive the presentation and open the workshop to the public and obtain input on the draft 2021-2029 general plan housing element update prepared pursuant to Government Code Section 65580-65590.
I second.
You have a second? Secretary, will you give me a roll, please?
Before you start, if I may, Chair, just to be clear, this was just a motion to approve staff's recommendation as written in the record.
That is
That's
correct.
Is that
correct.
correct? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
So Commissioner De La Rosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Item number 4, site plan review number 2021-027 for the story 66,753 square foot. May I have the presentation, Adrian Flores, please?
Sure, give me 1 second while I pull it up. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Chairperson Vera and the commissioners. So today we'll be speaking about site plan review number 2021-027. This is a project for a new 4-story self-storage building located at 8476 Garfield Avenue. Now it's the applicant's request approval for site plan review number 2021-027. Essentially to allow the construction for a new 4-story, 66,753 square foot self-storage building. Now, before we get to the actual project, I would like to give you guys a little background. So in 2006, the Planning Commission approved tentative parcel map number 065994 and site plan review number 2006-019 to allow the development of a self-storage facility at 8462 Garfield Avenue. Now, this development involved construction of 2 3-story self-storage buildings, totaling 44,055 square feet. This also included 871 storage rent units, an office space, and overall site improvements. Now, since 2010, A1 Self Storage has owned and operated the business. The business has been growing throughout the years, and they have expressed the interest in adding more storage rental units to their business. The proposed new four-story building has been designed to provide the additional rental units that they are seeking, and it's primarily what their expansion project is all about. Now to focus on the project, the site is located at 8476 Garfield Avenue. It's located in the M1 light industrial zone under the general plan of industrial. Now, the subject site is approximately 22,195 square feet. Some of the surrounding land uses north would be industrial, south would be the Southern Pacific Railroad, east would be industrial, and west would be Garfield Avenue with Eastern and industrial. Now, as I mentioned, there is an existing self-storage business there currently, as seen in this photo. Now, the property they are looking to acquire and develop on is right next to southwest of the property. This is currently exists there is a old warehouse building currently vacant. Now, the existing A1 Self Storage business is located on a separate parcel than the subject site. Therefore, a parcel merger would be required as part of the project's development. Now, the existing business is located on 8462 Garfield Avenue, as seen in red on the screen here. And the subject site is located at 8476 Garfield Avenue, located at the southwest corner of the existing site. Now, the parcel merger would basically combine these two parcels into one, and it would give them a total site of 90,027 square feet. Now, looking into the project itself, as mentioned, the existing self-storage facility is located to the northeast to the subject site, with 2 3-story buildings. And the subject site is located to the southwest corner of the existing self-storage facility, fronting Garfield Avenue. Now, essentially, I want to show both properties on this presentation because, like I mentioned, they will be doing a parcel merger. So we will be involving all of the parking, landscaping, and so on together. Now, the entry and exit ways to the property will be located off a 28-foot wide driveway off Garfield and Eastern Avenue. Now, the new building will be approximately 66,753 square feet in size and will be set back approximately 5 feet away from the front property line, facing Garfield Avenue, and will be constructed at a 0 setback along the southern property line, with a small portion here in the front, fronting Garfield, setback at 5 feet. Now, the existing facility will hold on to 16 of its existing parking spaces, 2 of which are ADA compliant, located near the office space, where they would be signing the rental units. Now, the new development will be introducing 15 new parking spaces, bringing the entire property parking count to a total of 31 parking spaces, with 2 loading spaces located on the east side of the building. Now, in addition to the parking, the facility will also provide approximately 4,519 square feet of landscaping throughout the property, located around the front setbacks and little park pockets around the driveway. Now, as mentioned, this building is 4 stories, so I want to go ahead and speak about the ground floor. Now, the ground floor will contain a trash and recycling room that will be located on the southeast corner of the building. And they will also introduce 2 elevators located in the center of the building. Now, each storage unit is going to be on average 100 square feet per unit. Now, onto the second floor. It's pretty much the same floor layout. The only difference is that they will be adding additional storage units to the north side of the building. Now, this is because the proposed parking spaces will be located under a overhang. So the first floor, as seen in the previous slide, um, here you can see the parking spaces. However, on the second floor, there'll be an overhang, which they'll be able to gain additional storage units. Now, the third and fourth floor, very similar. Now, the only difference here is that they'll of course have the two elevators, and they'll be gaining additional storage units here because, as seen on the second floor, they still need to leave a little space for the loading docks. So the third and fourth floor will have additional storage units compared to the first and second floor. Now, the 4-story self-storage building has been designed with a combination of split base CMU block and a stucco finish. The proposed building has been designed to match and complement the existing buildings located on the site. And the new building will be provided with the commercial type windows and commercial type doors with as well as commercial type roll-up doors for the trash and recycling room and the loading docks. No roof mounted equipment was proposed for this structure, so therefore no cross section will be needed. Now, the applicant's request is consistent with the City of Bell Gardens general plan. The proposed project will conform with all applicable development standards. Now, for storage facilities, there are special standards set in place, and this proposed project will comply with all of the special standards set forth in section 9.20.145 self-storage facilities. And the applicant's request does meet all of the findings established under section 9.58.060 site plan review of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code. Now, it is the recommendation that the Planning Commission, one, approve site plan review number 2021-027 to allow the construction of a new 4-story, 66,753 square foot self-storage building, and 2, adopt Planning Commission Resolution PC 2021-06. Now, that concludes my presentation, and we do have the applicant and as well as staff available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Secretary, do we have anybody on the line that wish to speak on this item?
No, we do not, Chairperson.
Other than the applicant, right?
I believe Adrian, the applicant, is joining us in the meeting tonight. If you want to confirm that.
I saw him at first. They're available. They're here. Yeah. Is there any questions? Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Brian Casser. Thank you, commissioners and chairperson. I'm here with our head of development, Tom Kearney, and we're here to answer any questions if needed.
Thank you, sir. Commissions, any questions? I have a small question. The handicap is right on the front like it should be for them to go into the office. But when they go in the back and storage their items, if they have to use the wheelchair all the way to the back, which mainly they do, how are they gonna go? You're gonna have a line pane? I don't see it on the plans. I don't see it on the plan how they're gonna get to the back.
From the new loading area?
Excuse me, Chairperson Rivera, I'm going to ask Adrian to share his screen.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian.
Can you see that?
Yes.
See how you have the handicap right in front of the office? And from there, if they have to storage on the building B, if it's a handicap, I don't see no marks for them to go to the back, and I don't know how are you planning to do that.
On existing building B?
Yes.
Yeah, that building is currently existing, and the two stalls that pour underneath the building are then accessible to the elevators. And those stalls, though they're not marked handicap, they're not required to be, but they are all accessible.
Okay, see, that's why, so they are handicapped, and so is the new building elevators, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so when they go in the back, so they have to park in the front because they're handicapped. But if they go in the back, when the wheelchair, they don't have no marks or lines where they go through it. You just have to go wherever they can, right? They drive to the back, correct?
Correct. They drive their car onto the property and they can park in these loading areas on that B building.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Actually, I do. In the environmental review section, can I get more of an elaboration as to why this project is exempt? Just a little bit more elaboration.
Was that question for the applicant or staff?
For whomever can answer.
For staff, I think.
I could
Adrian,
take
you
that
have it, or-
question.
Yeah, okay.
So Commissioner Flores, this project is exempt from CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, because it fits under Class 32, which is an infill development. So it is less than 5 acres and surrounded by urban uses. So it falls under that category, which will exempt this project from providing any environmental documents.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, Commission? No more questions? I will just make a, sorry? I will make just a comment on this building. I think it will look nice next to the railroad and beautify the city. It will look nice if it pass. So thank you for trying to build something nice in the city. And that's
Thank you.
for Mr. Bryan. Commissioners,
I
I will
appreciate
entertain a motion.
Actually, yeah, I feel like there's no like transparency as to overall like environmental reviews. Even like overall the building, there's no. I feel like there's no environmental transparency. Everything's okay. It just says that it's exempt because it's less than 5 acres surrounded, but you know.
Mr. Attorney, will you explain to
Yeah,
the,
please.
as far as the environmental?
Yeah.
Certainly, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Flores, as Adrian stated, that CEQA provides for certain projects to be considered exempt. There are certain projects that are presumed not to have an impact, or they are encouraged to be built, so the CEQA restrictions are removed. Infill development kind of falls in between both of those, and in instances where it's a small area, smaller than 5 acres, and it is surrounded by already well-developed properties, there is no necessity for a environmental review, and therefore there's exemptions from CEQA, unless you have some proposed use that in and of itself is a source of some environmental concern, whether that's a chemical plant or something like that. Yeah, but this type of a project is rightfully exempted under CEQA. So that is why staff is presenting it in the manner that it's being presented.
If anything is more concerned about this, is there any way that I can benefit city council?
are you muted? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Flores, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any way that, if I'm still concerned about like this environmental, is there any way that we can send it to city council for more reviewing? Or if I'm like not thoroughly, because I still have more like questions about the environmental review.
Well, I mean, your action here on this project is going to be the final action.
Mhm.
I will gladly spend time and sit down with you and we can discuss this in greater detail than the surrounding,
Yeah.
right now allows us to do. And I would happily do that. If you're not comfortable with,
Yeah,
with moving the
is there just
project
any
forward,
way?
you can certainly cast your vote in
Yeah, of
opposition.
course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the deny staff recommendation.
So I would not have to add to send it to the city council? I wouldn't add it to it, or? Are we gonna already approve for this, or can I add to this, so this could be reviewed? Would this be added on, like a motion to like add it to the city council, or how would that work?
What is, okay,
Like for more further reviewing?
Chairperson, Chairperson Rivera, if I may, real quick. In terms of your comments, Ms. Flores, I'm wondering if your questions are more related to whether the site is contaminated. Is that your concern? Okay, so
Yes.
Brian, would you mind answering question in regards to whether during as part of the purchase of the property, uh, the owner, the new owner completed a phase 1, phase 2 report?
Yes, we've completed a phase 1, a phase 2, and did extensive testing on the property. There was a previous tank that was removed under agency oversight that obtained site closure. And the existing conditions on site, because it was a tooling and machine shop, has some superficial minor staining, soil staining that will need to be accommodated during the grading process. But yes, an environmental study was done, an extensive one, and the contamination on the site is very, very limited. And the previous tank was removed under agency oversight and obtained closure.
Ms. Flores, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian.
Commissioner, I will answer your question.
Yes. Thank you.
And if I may add, if this project is approved tonight, the applicant will be submitting plans for grading drainage of the property along with soils report for plan check. We have Doug Benash from our city engineer's office that is also in this meeting tonight. And if you have any questions for Mr. Benash in regards to the plan check process for grading drainage, you're more than welcome to ask questions as well to Mr. Benash.
Commissioners? Or questions? I will entertain a motion then to approve or deny staff recommendation.
I second.
Asking for a motion, I'm sorry.
You're asking for- Motion to approve the site plan review number 2021-027.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. This is to approve staff recommendation. Nobody opposed? Passes with
I'm like, I
five
was
to
gonna say I
zero.
do.
Thank you. Next one is number 5, which is commercial parking lot sales workshop. Presentation will be given by Ms. Seba, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We are going to go over a workshop regarding commercial parking lot sales throughout the city. So the Community Development Department has received an inquiry from a commercial business in the city, from the city business owner regarding outdoor sales in commercially zoned parking lots. These types of events are also known as swap meets, flea markets, farmers markets, etc. The Bell Gardens Municipal Code does not provide definitions or regulations for these types of outdoor sales aside from special event permits. As you can see in the photos that are listed below, you can tell that both of these events are taking place in parking lots. The current section code 9.42030 allows a business owner to apply for a special event permit to hold special events such as parking lot sales subject to approval by the Community Development Department. This restricts special event permits to happen only 4 times per year, and each event could only be consecutive at 3 days and could not exceed that. The event is limited for the use and sale of merchandise related to the existing business licensed on the property. So say you operated a business where you sell dolls and you wanted to do a annual sale, then it was like a special sale, during the summer, and you're trying to get rid of some inventory, you could apply for a special event permit, put out a tent in front of your business in the parking lot, and would be able to sell those materials that you sell during the year. And of course, you'd have to obtain the special event permit through the Community Development Department and would have to be approved. The applicant would also be required to provide adequate parking during these events so that you're not, hindering parking and traffic concerns in the neighboring streets and neighboring properties. Staff completed kind of a survey of our surrounding cities and how things regarding these events are permitted in those cities. So we'll go through them. So in the city of Commerce, a swap meet or flea market. Currently, there's one that's held through the school district at a school campus and is not regulated by the city, but has been regulated by Montebello Unified School District. Their code does not address farmers markets, and parking lot sales are prohibited. In the city of Downey, they are permitted, swap meets and flea markets are permitted in commercial zones with a conditional use permit. So they would have to go to their planning commission for that approval. And in industrial zones, they are permitted by right. Farmers markets, however, are permitted in commercial and mixed use zones with a special event permit, which is similar to how we process the SCP as well. And that's the coordination of various city departments. That would be, if it were on a city property, you'd probably be talking to Parks and Rec, Community Development, Fire, etc. Parking lot sales in Downey are permitted with a special event permit for the sale of merchandise related to the existing business. In the city of Paramount, swap meets and flea markets are not permitted. However, there's a swap meet that's located at the existing drive-in theater, which is a legal non-conforming use. So that's been, in operation for many years. In Paramount, farmers markets are permitted at city-owned parks and are organized by Parks and Recreation. Parking lot sales are not addressed in their code. In Southgate, swap meets and flea markets are prohibited. Farmers markets aren't mentioned in their zoning code. And parking lot sales are permitted with a temporary use permit. So in the case of, if they were to sell Christmas trees during the holidays, pumpkins during, October and the fall, those are permitted for seasonal sales. In Santa Fe Springs, swap meets and flea markets are permitted with a conditional use permit. So again, would require the approval of the planning commission. Farmers markets are not addressed in their code, and neither is parking lot sales. Here are 3 photos of examples of outdoor sale events. The first one is a swap meet that looks like there's obviously, an actual structure. So that's probably, a permanent year-round type of event. And then you have one where it looks like that's the city of Long Beach. And that looks like that probably would be either a city-owned property or a school property. So again, would probably be supervised and regulated by either the city or a school district. Um, We'll go over some of the potential impacts that could be imposed onto properties and cities with the purpose of outdoor sales. So you could, these types of uses would, decrease and or provide a lack of on-site parking for patrons of the existing business. So say you work in a shopping plaza and your business is going to have a commercial parking lot sale. And so if you're going to be taking up parking spaces, you could be causing, a lack of patrons attending a business next to you. There's also an increase for demand for on-street parking on nearby streets, because when you're going to go to these events, if you were to go to them, you'd have to, park somewhere. And so you're then causing issues in terms of, an excess of parking on, neighboring properties, neighboring commercial properties. If it's a commercial property that's next to a residential property, then you're hindering parking on a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood. There's also the possibility of additional traffic and congestion of people just trying to get to this event, of these outdoor sales. So there are people driving around looking for parking, et cetera. And then there's also the general concern for neighboring brick and mortar businesses, because if you are, the neighboring business and someone is having an outdoor sales and they weren't aware of the event or they weren't notified, then obviously your neighbor is going to have, a really good day in sales possibly, and you probably will not, because there could be a sale going on. And so if you sell similar items, your business neighbor is selling the same items, but at a lower price. And then there's also no overhead for them. There's also an increase of noise, littering, loitering, the amount of people that will come to these events, that are, could turn into maybe just a hangout kind of an event as well. We, as staff, sent out these workshop flyers, posted them on these websites, through social media. Basically, this was to obtain feedback from the community regarding these types of events. So now we will leave the workshop open for any questions, any discussion items we can go over. So I'll keep the screen up just for that, I guess.
Thank you. Secretary, how many speakers, do we have any speakers on this item?
Chairperson, we did not receive any speakers that are requested to be called, nor do we currently have anybody in the chat box that wants to speak on this item. But please note, we did receive 9 emails. I did receive 9 emails in reference to this item, which I will now read into the record. I also provided a copy to each one of the commissioners for you to also have. So I'll go ahead and read those comments now to have in the record. The first one is from April Tamada, stating that she was in favor of the private vendor selling on commercial parking lots. The second email comment was from Ms. Rosa Carrillo, also stating that she was in support of the pop-up vendors. There needs to be a change in the code. Third email comment is from Zoila Caejas, stating that she's also in favor of the small business pop-up in private parking lots. This helps small businesses and the community grow as well. The next email comment is also from Zoila Caejas, stating that I'm in favor for small business pop-up in private parking lots. These events help us small vendors get the exposure and make sales to feed our family. It also helps your community, hence the business renting out the space gives them exposure as well. The next email comment is from the pop-up shop. And the name of that person is also Zoila. There's no last name that was provided. They stated, I host pop-up events for small businesses. We would love for the city of Bell Gardens to come aboard with allowing small businesses from the community to come together and host events. These are far different than swap meets, as swap meets are overcrowded, overpriced, and very saturated. Pop-up events, we select businesses only by one to make sure we give everyone the opportunity to make their sales. Remember that these are startup businesses that eventually will be able to make a own brick and mortar shop. The city allowing us to host at private parking lots helps not only the small businesses attending, but also the business in the community, allowing us the space, as they get exposure from customers attending and even make better sales. The community benefits as well as we give back from the support with multiple raffle events. Thank you so much for considering and discussing the possibility on these events. The small businesses community is forever grateful for your time. And then the next email comment I received was from Masanobu Tamada, stating that they were also in favor of the pop-up and private vendors to sell on commercial parking lots. The next email was from Masarina Pizza, stating that the city of Bell Gardens needs to change the code for pop-up and vendors to sell on commercial parking lot. This is good for the city and everybody everybody profits out of it. The next email comment is from Angie Tamara, stating, I want to change to support the pop-ups in commercial parking lots. The city needs to help the local businesses. And the last email that I received was from Randall Martinez, stating, I just wanted to contact you concerning the vendors that set up on commercial parking lots to sell out their items. I believe for many good reasons, it really helps out the community as well as the people in need of income, as well as those who love to shop in an outdoor, safer atmosphere, as opposed to those that are indoor, such as the malls, etc. Please accept my 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, and my vote to allow the vendors to continue providing such a fun and awesome service. Thank you for your consideration. And I also did receive 2 phone messages from 2 Bell Garden residents, Ms. Tanya Diaz and Martha Bravo, that were also in favor of this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff?
So again, they would have to apply for a permit, and as well as the space that they're thinking of has to be allowed by the property owner themselves, correct?
So the code currently allows for special event permits. So that's the 4 times a year, 3 consecutive days event. What we're going over right now is basically not in the code right now. If that's something that the commission is looking into us wanting to do, then we can do that. But what we're looking at right now is what we permit per the code, and that's special event permits. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a quick question. Say someone were in these pop-up shops, someone were to injure themselves. What sort of insurance or what kind of backup is for it? There's nothing. I'm just curious to know if someone were to injure themselves. Just worst case scenario.
So part of the application for special event permit events requires a certificate of insurance, I believe is what it's called, that holds the city liable. I think it's like $1 million is the max or the minimum. But that's if someone were to do something on city property, I believe. So I guess that would be up to a property owner if someone wanted to injure themselves on someone else's property.
Well, if you go into private property, then it's up to
The property owner, right?
be up to the private property.
Actually, if I
but
may, Chairperson, so special event permits type 2 would currently requires a liability insurance to be filed with the city for $1 million, and it has to co-insure the city. It has to be listed as part of the certificate of liability insurance. But that is under the current code provisions under a type 2 application. So a type 2 application, for example, would be a filming on the property, carnival, circus, a large parking lot sale or event on a parking lot. All of that would be under type 2.
Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Chair, Planning Commissioners, the reason the city insists on having be added as an additional insured on a policy of insurance is in the event something does happen, if there's no other source of funds for the injured person, it is very likely that city as the issuer of the permit would be involved in a lawsuit, right or wrong, whether, there's any involvement or liability on the part of the city. Very often, unfortunately, public entities are named in actions because they do have deep pockets. And even on a private parking lot, should the city be the issuing agency, the permit issuer, similar situation would most likely occur if the property owner didn't have deep enough pockets to respond to any lawsuit and injury. So if it is the desire of the Planning Commission to have staff explore this type of a change in the code, obviously it would be our recommendation that that goes along with insurance requirements as well.
And if I may add, Chairperson Rivera, members of the Planning Commission, so right now, the City of Bell Gardens has an ordinance that permits, special event permits for current licensed business owners to have events on their parking lot. Like Yalini explained, if, for example, a particular retailer has additional merchandise that they want to get rid of at the end of a season, they may apply for that special event permit. At Christmas, right before the holidays, they may want to do a sidewalk sale. I know at the marketplace we issue those type of permits for some of the retailers. They're more than welcome to apply for their special event permit up to 4 times a year for 3 consecutive days. In this particular instance, the request is, or the inquiry that we received is for any business that is located on a commercial property to have this type of pop-up markets or sales within their parking lot that are non-related to the business that they conduct on site. So what that means is that anyone could come into our city and set up the stands on parking lots of our commercial businesses and conduct sales from those stands. Similar to what you see when you go to a flea market or when you go to a shop.
Commissions? Any more questions?
Yes, I would like a clarification here. I saw a comment here by, I believe was, it was by Zoila. Would businesses be able to rent out the parking space in their current commercial area to a pop-up shop or of some sort, or how, or would the parking space would be associated only to that business that's currently standing in that commercial area?
You want to answer that?
So currently, the special event permits, it would have to be related to the business, that's the brick and mortar business. You have to sell the exact items that are being sold inside that store, outside. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that answers it. Thank you.
Basically, on this particular recommendation is we allow any parking lot people to sell. I will say this much as a comment. We already have business established with insurance, with parking. And now if we allow somebody to go in to use those parking, now he's not complying with the parking. So whoever is putting it, I don't care, wherever they put it, if it's little or big, it's not gonna be parking enough for them to do the business. We're a small city. I mean, if we know the whole city, it's only probably a few places you can do some kind of like farmer markets. It probably would be okay if you do it once a week on the parks, but then you create a problem on the people who live next to the parks. Uh, I have my own opinion, I have a problem with this. Uh, if it's gonna be using, because we already have business, I would like to have maybe a little more assistance on the city for a small business. It could be done if you want to do it right. I done a small business myself, so I know that you can't do it if we put our head together with the city and everybody else. We can get it done. People can come in and get some help from the city. Uh, Even if you use small, you can find a small place to put a business in Bell Gardens. And I'll give you an example where I buy my tacos in Watcher and Easton. That's a small place, but it has a lot of customers. They do good tacos. And that's a good example that I'm putting together. I don't, I don't know, but you need to ask the questions committee. In this case, my own recommendation on this one would be because of the issue of being put it on the parking lot where already is legal with license, with insurance. Now you're gonna bring people from other side, and I don't think the market will rent it to them to come in with another competition in their parking lot, unless if on the neighbor side. So it's gonna be it's just a problem. I see a problem in there, but it's up to you. So if you have any more questions?
I mean, it's not more of a question, but just a comment I'd like to make. I saw that the city of Downey, it looked like it was, correct me if I'm wrong, the only city that was like less restrictive and allowed those three subcategories of like events or special events or whatnot. Can we look to our neighbors to see how those CUPs have worked and, maybe, um, impacted the nearby businesses or whatnot and, allowed other businesses to come. Um, I'd like to see more of a research to see how it's benefited that community and maybe it can benefit ours. And considering the issue with COVID-19, how it's decimated businesses and families, maybe this might be a good approach for people to recuperate on that. So maybe if the city had asked if we can do some type of research on that specific city, just because I saw that it was the only city that allowed to a magnitude for all those three categories with certain conditions.
Okay. If we want to recommend like a farmer market, maybe we can do that on the parks, but that's another issue. We can recommend that and then they can sell, people will come as far as Santa Monica to sell like honey. And I have experience in Long Beach. In Long Beach, they put it on the street and it's just, they do it every weekend. But they go after, people coming from all over the place. Some stuff are low price, but the stuff that you buy in there is already on the markets. You buy some stuff, a few, they are local grow. That's the only benefit that you can have in some of them. Uh, but it's up to you. What you want to do? You want to recommend it? Have any more comments, or we have or entertain a motion, or you wanna?
Chairperson Rivera, if I may, uh, I'm going to ask Martin to clarify what the recommendation is and the action to be taken by the planning commission tonight, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, and planning commissioners, staff is bringing this item for you on a workshop setting. We're looking for your direction. One recommendation is, we heard it, we'll think about it, and basically receive and file and don't do anything, don't spend any staff time, don't expend any resources right now pursuing this issue to a level of a code amendment or an ordinance. That's one option. The other option is that you direct staff that they do start drafting an ordinance and basically change the rules in the city to allow for these outside businesses to come in and compete and exist on the parking lots. And then at some point in time, staff will come to you with that draft ordinance, and you'll have time to consider and talk about it. But it is a direction that will impact staff resources. So unless you're certain that that's the direction you want to proceed and you want to see that ordinance actually come before you, that would not be the direction to provide unless you're certain that you want to move it forward. As another option, as was mentioned by Commissioner Leon, you can direct staff to do some more research. You take a look at Downey and see what their experiences are, and then come back with another report. And then you can still think about this and have some more time to, and that level of effort is fairly minimal. It's some phone calls, maybe a meeting with somebody from the other, from the other city. So those are some of the options that are here before you.
I agree with Commissioner Leon that maybe we should do a little bit more research. Because it's like Chairperson Rivera said, our city's pretty small. So I feel like there's some more things that maybe we should review. I'm open to allowing these pop-up businesses to flourish and succeed. But we should definitely, like Chairperson Commissioner Leon said in Downey, definitely we should look into our neighboring cities. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners.
I would like to make a comment. Based on the agenda report, it states that these sales are limited to the businesses leasing the spaces in the shopping center allowed. In the shopping center, sorry. And, it's pretty much, this statement suggests that we can't expect small businesses from outside the city to come into Bell Gardens and establish a pop-up shop. So I think that this could really stimulate the economy, the economic activity by from businesses that are already in Bell Gardens. I think this is beneficial to these businesses that are already established here. But looking at Downey here, I think that I would like to understand how their structure is formatted to allow farmer markets. I'm very intrigued to see how they operate that and see how they also regulate the amount of businesses that are able to participate in these events. That way, we also don't see any effects in traffic or any issue of that sort. So yeah, those are just some comments from myself. Um, yeah, I would like to see more information on this.
Whoever is speaking is muted.
Well, Commission, we can make a recommendation. Let's see what you want. But I can tell you, I can explain. I was involved in Long Beach and San Luis market. Usually, one person organize the market. He put the insurance, he get the permits, he gets everybody, and it's a task because you have to get everybody with permits, and they come from all over the place. It's a few, they come in local. In Bell Gardens, you might have some you do local, like if you put it on the parks. But that will be something that we need to, if we want something like that, it would be on the parks, Bell Gardens parks. You probably have the parking lot and probably have the space, and then you get a permitted special event like every week. or how many times you wish to have it. But I think that's kind of like we probably need to have if you want to have the local people to be involved in something, small business, but on parking lots, it will be defeating our own system to allow plenty parking lots. I can tell you that a Starbucks and Easter, you cannot even get in there. It's so crowded because they got so much business. That's good, but it's crowded right now. You put some more people in there, and then you don't fit in there. And that's the type the stuff that we're gonna get. Uh, but we need to, whatever you want, just make a recommendation. Uh,
Is there a parking lot by any chance that maybe like the city has been looking at, like as potential example that we can go based off on?
Carmen, do you have any place that you might think? But I don't see no parking lot uh, besides the shopping center that we already have, but it's already have business and limited parking.
Okay, so if I may, may answer that question. Um, so keep in mind, the inquiry that was brought to staff by a current commercial owner is not for a specific location owned by the city. It's for anyone that conducts business in the city on a commercial zone property to be able to turn their own parking lot within the property that they occupy into a pop-up tent sale event. So it's not something that would be, the inquiry that the city receives is not for something, for this type of events to be organized, to be city organized on the city's property, such as a park or the parking lot of a city facility, but it's for any individual commercial business in the city to have the ability to conduct this type of businesses on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on their own properties. Did I answer the commissioner's question?
Yeah, I think I understand, and that's what I'm talking about. That we're gonna have in a little parking lot, we're gonna have three business people parking and blocking the street trying to get the food. I don't want that. I don't know what you want. I want to help, and I'm pro a small business, but I'm not. I don't want to be blocking the whole street unless it's organized. Uh, I don't think I want that for the neighborhood, and I don't think the neighborhood wants that.
So if I may add one more comment. So I'm familiar with a few flea markets, um, and they're typically organized by an event organizer in conjunction with the city, Park and Recreation Department.
See, I will be, I think, more open for something like that. The city will organize it with somebody else. It's like what we do with events with the soccer football in the park. Somebody will come and bring all these people, and they will be local, but I guarantee you will be probably 60% outside, and less than from Bell Garden will be less. We are small. Uh, we might have some taco sales and some tamales, but it just if it's 100 people, you're gonna have probably 20 from Bell Gardens and the rest of it from the outside, which is okay. But what I'm saying is, you wanna recommend it to look into the farmer market? That would be something that we can do. Parking lots, I don't see it. I think it will be disorganized, and we'll be having a lot of traffic blocking because what they want to do basically is rent the parking lot for people to open a taco stand, tamales, and they put a lunch truck all over the place, and all kinds of little cars, and that's how I seen it. They want to do it, which is I don't know if that's what we want to see in the city.
Chairperson Rivera, what I'm envisioning from this item in the agenda is, let's say, for example, Ross. They want to open up a pop-up shop. They would just be opening that up in their parking space. We wouldn't be, I'd say, expecting other businesses outside of Bell Gardens joining in into that particular event. So with that being said, I don't expect a huge effect on traffic, especially with the consideration that uh, these businesses are limited to 4 of these events per year, 3 of them which are consecutive. So I guess what we could expect is scattered activity with this item. So we could probably see pop-up shops pop up in multiple locations, but not in one particular location or parking lot. So that's what I'm envisioning. Can staff correct me if that's the case?
So I think the inquiry that staff received was a commercial property business owner in the city who was inviting vendors from within the city or outside the city. I'm not sure. It could be both or one or the other. But vendors to come and set up, kind of that's essentially the pop-up. As their individual, tents for each of their items that they're going to vend in the business owner's parking lot. So they weren't selling specifically what the business in the city sells currently. It was other miscellaneous items. So I think that's what the concern was that we were expressing in the PowerPoint presentation, was that because these vendors are coming from, we're not sure whether or not they're from within the city or from the outside, but they're coming in using parking spaces that were allotted to the commercial business that is licensed in the city, and then scheduling an event, whether it be regular or once a month, whatever it is. But without the special event permit, they were operating essentially this pop-up shop with different vendors selling a number of items. So I guess that's the difference.
And if I may add to Yalini's comment, in this particular instance, the commercial site is quite small. And so this event was taking up the entire parking lot, which means there was no parking available for those attending the pop-up market, flea market, or even those patrons of the business where this event was being conducted. Customers for both the commercial business as well as the pop-up event had to park on the street. Chairperson, you're muted. Chairperson Rivera, you're muted.
Sorry. I said, can we have a motion, like Mr. Leon said, let's go check Downey and let's bring it back in the next month or the next couple months after you go and investigate how they're doing in Downey and give us a feedback. Can we make a motion for that?
Or is it consensus? If everybody agrees, you don't need a motion.
Oh, yeah, if everybody,
If there's consensus, you don't need a motion. I mean, staff understands the direction. So if there's a consensus for that, staff will just take that and come back to you either next meeting or meeting after and give you a report on what we found out.
do we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Carmen, can you get that done for us, please?
Yes, Chairperson Rivera, we will look into how the city of Downey handles their flea market. I believe it's on 2nd Street on Saturday. And then we'll look at a couple of other cities and bring back some information to the commissioners, either in September or October.
I tell you, other city that does a little one that I drive by, there's a lot of traffic, but it's Corona. One on Main and 6th Street. Corona, they do one in their Corona 6 in Maine. And I drove through there many times, and they do that one in the small parking lot.
Thank you. We'll look into those.
Thank you. Staff, any comments?
No, Chairperson Rivera.
Commissioners, any comments?
I'm glad to be back in present instead of in our own computers.
Yes, yes, yes.
Here,
I
here.
say yes. Glad to see you, Commissioner, full floor again. Thank you very much. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
so be it. Adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.